All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a decent agenda tonight. I think we can get through it in some rational amount of time. Couple of big things, and a whole lot of routine-ish things. Let's just dive in. So liaison reports, I guess, is our traditional starting point. DPW. We had a changing of the guard there. I guess it would be, is it Bruce 2 now?
Yeah.
Bruce 2 and I see Dookie. Yep. There.
Okay. So I think no DPW tonight. Stewardship, do we have you on the call? Looks like
that would be John Garrett.
Yeah, looks like no there also. Okay. Rangers then. Natasha.
Yep. I have an updated ask from the Rangers for their budget.
Great.
Yeah, so let me just that real quick. No. There it is. So, yeah. PDF file, it's pretty well. There we go. It is $5,102.35.
Okay.
Can you repeat? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? 5,000 what?
$5,102.35.
35 cents. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I believe the main differences from previous years is just one-time sanctuary. Yeah, the sanctuary budget here is 6, 7, 8, 9, almost $1,000. I should have been more diligent forwarding this to board at, but
okay.
You're saying it's $1,000 more, and what's the big area they're asking for that's so much more than last time?
Sanctuary.
Oh yeah, because they needed to replace stuff. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because all of Sanctuary got bloody.
It's not just 1,000 more. It's more like 2,200 more than last year's budget, and it's about double last year's budget. Last year's 2023 actual was 2,942.35.
Yeah, I think they came to a point where they needed to order new hats and new shirts, which they didn't ask for last year.
Okay.
I don't have the detailed ask from last year. I think we have that on. Let me check real quick to see if we had.
I'm not trying to be extreme here, but we were already kind of generously rounding up, and
I know, and this is why I do want to see it. And there it is. So it was, yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering if we can go back to them and ask if they can split the asset replacement costs over this year and next year, or if it all has to be done in 1 year.
You take a look at this year. I just want to go line by line real quick and do the comparison between this year and last year and this week. Maybe identify one. So yeah, shirts is what kind of shirts adds. I think for $500, $450.
Okay.
Dollars to the shirts price has almost doubled It was $7.50 per shirt, and now it is $16.30. So that accounts for like almost $450, something like that. There's a one-time glow lanyard request from them that we might say no on that. That's $370. Them asking for glow lanyards appreciation. Maybe that's a no.
So, in the interest of offlining some of this negotiation, what do you say we bump our 4,000 projected up to 4,500, and then attempt to find middle ground between last
Sure.
year's 3,000 and this year's 5,100? Was it
Yep.
requested? Yeah.
This way, we're also like, hey, we're covering all the sanctuary losses because
Yep.
these are operational losses.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, everybody, just to clarify what just happened, an extra $500 just snuck into the budget.
An extra
based on-
$1,000.
Was it an extra?
No, so
Well,
an
we
extra-
already had 4,000 written down. I guess
Yeah.
is my point. I'm saying we're now writing down in the budget 4,500.
We approved an extra $500.
Sure, assuming we get to approval moments from now.
It is the same leads as last year.
Great.
I think they're still looking for a third, but 1 and 2 are JB and Julia Bravo and Brute Squad.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
That's all from Rangers.
Then next on the list, although this may be either out of sequence or covered elsewhere in this particular meeting, is producer reports critical? Is there an update worth talking about? We'll also obviously talk about contract status and stipends that made it into the budget and all of that stuff shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. We have begun hiring. Applications went out for associate producers and directors. We will be shortly following that with applications for leads by end of month. We are meeting with Mason's board on January 27th to ratify both the dates for critical and the leads retreat. And that's all I have.
Great.
What was that about the Leeds retreat?
Just confirming the dates of the lead. Actually, correction, that will not be accomplished at the board meeting. Sorry, that's a different organization. So this month, January 27th, Mason board meeting, we'll just be confirming with them the official dates for critical.
Okay.
And which dates did we land on?
July 15 to 21, not yet official.
Okay.
Would you say it's tentative reboot?
I would say that many times.
I've had that suggested to me as the theme.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, then I think minutes from last month. Hey, board, did you all do your homework and read the minutes from last month? Does anyone have any requests for amendment? Hearing none, then the minutes for the December, was it 20th meeting? It sounds like are adopted. We'll at this moment we'll read some things in
I will
from a the board budget meeting that happened on January 3rd, we made a few decisions and want to get those in the monthly minutes as well. Namely, we adopted a resolution to increase the critical producer stipend to $5,000 for this year, the critical associate producer stipends to $2,000, with Natasha as a nay and Marley abstaining. We voted to increase the C compression producer stipend to $1,500 this year and maintain the C compression associate producer stipend at $750 for the 2024 event cycle, with Natasha as a nay. And we are recommending the budget draft that we'll discuss momentarily for adoption, but we wanted to spend the time between then and this meeting getting feedback, incorporating feedback, reflecting on what we've got, etc. So I guess that brings us to budget approval. So I don't know how much of this we want to spend the time to go over, but I do think that it's worth just kind of summarizing what are the major changes over last year, and maybe summarizing the top line picture. So last year, we ended up clearing about $38,000, $38,800 after two events that came in at a loss and one event, namely Critical, that came in with its usual pretty reasonable bottom line. And so after subtracting out expenses like what it costs to be Ignition and also our two events that didn't break even, we ended up clearing $38,800. Let's see, Marco, maybe we want to talk. Yeah, I think I'll interrupt myself with the treasurer's report just because I think that's really useful background information for us as we go through the rest of the budget. Does that sound reasonable? Do you want to at least talk about current balances and the quarterly, like the fourth quarter 2023 snapshot that you prepped?
Sure, I can do that. I guess there's no way to share screen things here.
Oh, should be. It's the little computer monitor with a little swooshy arrow to the right.
Swooshy arrow to the right.
The third button from your left.
I see it. I see it. Let me open this in a document. What is this in? Graphic Converter. Okay, so on Graphic Converter. Okay, yes, you can have my permission. Here's my password.
Jeremy.
Okay, Firefox, you have. Oh, maybe I can't do it. Let's see. Let's see if this works. Can y'all see it?
Not
yet.
yet.
Oh, there we
now
go.
we can.
Woo.
There it is. This is the current balance of at BCU. You can see the main account is 48,686. The critical 126,781. C compression 51,116. And the other two accounts are, you know, the recurring was for like recurring billing items, and so it just has a minimal amount. And the savings is $5,308. So this is current accounts. Okay, let me quit that. How do I stop sharing?
Looks like you successfully did.
Okay. So now I will share another one and open up the Q4 financial report that I just ran from the Quickie Books. And let's see. 1, 3, 2, come on. It's open. Select the window I want. Don't know why it's not showing up. Come on, Adobe. Well, let's see if that one works.
There we go.
Alrighty. So this is the report that just ran from QuickBooks for the last quarter from October to December of 2023. So that includes the event income from C compression. I will confess that I did not make sure that all the BECU transactions were uploaded or fully synchronized with QuickBooks, but this gives you just a sort of good overview of what happened for C compression. There's your gross profit, expenses for art grants, $800, expenses for stipends, $400. That does not include the last stipends that were paid out within the last month or so. Operations, accounting, legal funds, legal services. So more of that cost to run Ignition Northwest. So overhead fees, supplies, other materials, postage, marketing, food and beverage, facility rentals, came up to $93,1272. And again, I don't think that includes the City of Seattle fee for Seattle Center there. Ticketing fees. So basically the net revenue after all the expenses were taken out is only $17,000 for the Q4 2024.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to share then the budget sheet and we'll finish going over this real quick. So probably the most interesting thing to do is to talk about major changes. One of them is that so the events all up last year netted about $42,000. This year we're budgeting very, very conservatively. Like we actually have ways that we suspect we can do better on C compression, and it's not that we expect critical to be significantly worse this year than it was last year. So this number may be conservative, but we also learned that events are harder than they were pre-pandemic, and we wanted to prepare a conservative budget. So we're budgeting similar event nets to what we actually saw last year. We're also being conservative on donations. We have had over time folks who put in a lot of volunteer time and report a lot of volunteer hours that their employers match with cash. And those folks are in shorter supply right now than they have been at some points in our organization's history. And so while there are still some of those around, we kind of wanted to acknowledge that that donations are likely to be a little bit lower this year than they were last year. That again, that could be conservative. And we're also working, especially in the fundraising committee, to come up with ways to push that number up. And then we set for ourselves a modest goal of developing an organizational capability to start writing grants. Obviously, this is, you might call it a stretch goal. We don't know exactly yet who's going to be doing the writing. We do know that we're in a decent place in terms of just having our organizational paperwork in a row in order to be able to resume the process of credibly landing grants. So we're going to push on that a little bit this year as well. And then finally, the expenses. So we're keeping the education line item, which we didn't actually end up doing anything with in 2023, but we're keeping it in place. There have been some, I think, both ideas for this and also things that we've actually done in the past that it made sense to the board to continue working on. This is $5,000 in to it. I know this is kind of confusing. We've got $5,000 on line 7 for grants received, and this line on line 12 is grants written outside the context of our events. So we account for event art grants within the scope of the event budgets. But here's an additional $5,000 in art grants that we intend to carry on. I think some historical traditions around this year with that, and then we'll go real quick through the operations sheet. But we've got a very similar year this year, designed into the operations budget from last year. Oh, and then there's also this line, which is extremely worth calling out. It's probably literally the biggest new possible expense for 2024, which is hiring a part-time administrator of some sort to help with tax, like government obligations and event administration is probably the short way to put that. So yeah, it's definitely not, the scope is definitely not the full executive director vision that has been, which experiment has been run. But the idea here is that there's almost certainly an opportunity for us to spend a little bit of money to have some things that otherwise fall to volunteers to be expertly taken care of by people who are compensated to do it. And let's go look at the ops budget. Any questions so far? Excellent. Moving on. So then let's look at ops. So we largely ended up with numbers that look an awful lot like our 2023 actuals, in some cases rounded up, in some cases rounded down. One notable difference is we believe that 2024 should be the year that we bring back a stipended volunteer asset manager. And we're budgeting $2,700 for that. Legal, we're expecting to spend a little bit less on that than 2023 actual. We've still got a line, or maybe freshly have a line, I'm not sure which, for the volunteer appreciation party that we've been intending to get around to for a long time now. We're continuing to carry a line item for in-person town halls, at least one, maybe two a year in person. The regional contact support is the newbie picnic and other regional contact related things. Board retreat, we're putting all of our, this in terms of total, this is very similar to last year, but we're putting all of our projected expense here into venue, and we'll figure out some way to be a little bit scrappier when it comes to food and transportation. But we still definitely believe that getting the new board, especially when the new board consists of more newcomers than standing board members, we believe that FaceTime will be very important there, and this is in support of that. The Ranger budget, let's see. The Ranger budget, as we discussed earlier on the call, that's been bumped up now to $4,500. And then there is currently no rack, so there is currently no rack budget. There has never been a RIC, so there is currently no RIC budget. We're carrying on the grand tradition of a modest discretionary fund for board member projects to get greenlit mid-year with low guilt. And then I'm gonna just blast through these. These are all of our existing technical expenses. We recognize that CRM plus email contact is, especially together, one of our biggest expenses, and we're talking about comms committee and tech committee working together to maybe squish this down, consolidate some of our functionality here, consider alternatives, etc. But unfortunately, we don't really know what our credible alternatives are there at the current time. So we're carrying that forward at current rates. DocuSign, we're dropping Zoom because we use Jitsi now. New item that there is at least some amount of enthusiasm for, both in the events production community and also amongst the board, for a commercial wiki product for us. This is an experiment, admittedly. If we don't end up seeing this do what we hope it does, then it's, going to be one of those things that we cut guilt-free. But there are many of us that believe strongly that this will be a very solid substrate for us to document some of our organizational knowledge and help bring newcomers in and keep the wisdom of the ages alive. Our PO box licenses and permits, not a whole lot that we can do much about there. Insurance, our storage unit, a line item for updating our radio license that has been in discussion in the tech committee for 6 months or so, since about Critical last year. And that brings our total to $47,869. So not a whole lot that's different than last year. We tried to be aggressive and say no at every place we could. We spotted some possible opportunities to cut even more. We definitely didn't let it grow. And that's about where we came out to. Questions on that? All right. We didn't do detailed event budgets, but we'll be doing detailed event budgets, obviously, as the events get rolling. And we expected, and we already talked through our grants, projections, education expenses, etc. So that's the year. There is actually, Natasha, I did just think of one other thing that we need to talk about and probably should reflect in the budget, which is the Seattle taxes.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have those numbers handy? Do you want to blurb that real quick?
I could probably pull it. Let me log in real quick into File Local.
Okay. So if memory serves, it was something
About
along the
800.
lines of $2,000 for each of 2022 and 2023.
No, it was less.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about a total of like 800 and something. It was 546 for 2022.
Great.
Mostly because of the late filing, and
Gotcha.
297.39 for 23.
Okay. Can you give me those numbers again? I'm going to put them under legal requirements.
Yeah, let me throw them into the chat so they're exact. This is
Great.
2022. This is 2023. This is the City of Seattle Business and Occupancy Tax. That we are, like, after some searches and checks and reading the City of Seattle ordinance about like what are we supposed to pay, we figured out that this is what we need to pay.
All right. So I put those numbers. Those are not only projected, those are our actuals to get us caught up through this most recent tax year. So through the 2023 tax year filed in 2024. That brings our ops budget total to $48,712.39, which brings our projected loss for the year to $17,212. And just to put that in context, we saw the approximately $250,000 in reserves that that Marco flashed, and we are. I think it's fair for me to say consensus there is that we're we're comfortable there, but we're not extremely comfortable there. Like, we believe that the right number is for that, or the right direction for that is for it to go modestly upward year over year when we can manage to do it. We also recognize that there's a couple of things in the budget that are new and ultimately investments in the organization's future, the quality of our events, and the quality of life for our volunteers that are causing us to kind of push the accelerator pedal a little bit this year in a way that's going to burn, unless we end up with the events number or the donations number, the grants received number, any of which could be higher than forecast. That kind of puts us where a little bit down for the year, but not, we don't feel irresponsibly so, and hopefully puts us in even better shape for an epic 2025. So there's the summary. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask those. Otherwise, we're headed toward the board voting on an approval for this. Okay. Thanks for bearing with us through that possibly boring run through. Hey board, does somebody want to move to adopt this budget as amended by the ranger number and taxes?
I so move.
I second this.
Okay, we've got Flemmy moving, Natasha seconding. All in favor, say aye.
I
Hi.
Opposed, say nay. Sounded unanimous to me. So with the board members present voting, we got unanimous approval on this draft of our 2024 budget. Nice work, everybody. Thanks for the all of the hours that you put in on the budget. It was an epic journey, and here we are. Indeed. Love the sound effects.
This is your budget, and welcome to it.
All right. I think I'm no longer sharing. Let's go on then to event wraps. There's a few things to unpack here. So Marco is increasingly emphatic that we're beginning to stand out with the org as laggards here, and is strongly encouraging us to get these filed and our numbers, our financials published as quickly as we possibly can, so that we can get the org to forget that we exist for another year, which is our goal. Where are we on on this? The contributors that I recall are, we had, I think Natasha signed up to help. We had event producers maybe running around grabbing data, and we had Marco offering to help in whatever way Marco can help, I believe.
I think where we are with that is that reignition and C-compression were both filed.
Okay.
And Marco started working on critical and is working with Decoy to get like the rest of the data needed for that. Because the org is asking all kinds of questions of how many volunteer hours and all kinds of stuff. Marco,
I did see an email come through from Heidi with more information. Is that all we need, or is there still more that's outstanding? Do we know?
In that email, there's a document that has certain sections highlighted that are missing the data.
Okay.
And the volunteer hours things. I worked with A-List and Crash to come up with a close enough suggested numbers for those volunteer hours, et cetera. And that's all they're really looking for. The important thing is that the event financials need to be posted publicly, so that we can put the link in, send the link to the regional event committee, and stay in their good graces. This was all due December 31st, so it'd be great to put these to bed before the end of the month.
Okay. The draft of the financials that I saw from Decoy today, I did not go over it with the eye of an accountant because I don't have one of those, but I did look at it, and it certainly passed my sanity check. So I would claim that if we can get a few more board eyeballs on that to just kind of like validate that there's nothing egregious or embarrassing there, I think we're good to go with publishing financials for at least Critical. I don't think we did a similar process for the other two events, but I also feel like those financial reports were ready a bit ago.
They were more straightforward.
And they were more straightforward. Okay, so what do we want to do? Hey, board, does anybody have objections to us going ahead with the Critical financial report that we saw from Decoy today or yesterday?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll ship that. Marco, yeah, I think what you say makes sense. I can't imagine that we need like CPA audited roles of volunteer hours.
No.
And so surely we can get to an order of magnitude there. Let's see. We've got at least one producer here. Reboot. What stands between? Do you know what the inventory of stuff is that we need to still round up answers to? And can some set of us volunteer to help do either creative writing or investigative reporting there?
I do know the set of things that needs to be found. Some of those things were things that we weren't expecting to need to know.
Okay.
But I will light some fires under all of us, and we are both in progress and also not prioritizing it as much as we could. So
Understood.
I will escalate a notch or two.
Okay. Yeah. Would definitely appreciate that. I mean, I don't want to overstate this, right? Like, I don't think that we're literally at risk yet. Marco, like, glare at me if I'm terribly wrong here. Like, I don't think we're at risk of getting bad stuff to happen yet, but I think we are looking like we're kind of on the looking a little bit foolish side of the continuum of customers of the Borg and the regional events committee right now, and that's just not a place that I want to be. So prioritize accordingly. Like, obviously don't wreck anything for this year, but pushing is worthwhile, and getting this off the list as quickly as we can, as correctly as we can, is probably the right way to prioritize this.
Yeah, and this is the template going forward, and so it could be filled out as part of the RAP report, or maybe it is the RAP report. But the outstanding items are the number of production volunteers, estimated volunteer hours, number of theme camps, number of art projects, number of performing artists. I mean, these should be findable fairly easily. And number of art grants, we have all that. That's, I know at least Frida had access to that. So
it's actually very helpful to learn that ultimate precision is not required. So
yeah,
that will help a lot.
Oh yeah, ish.
It's all kind of for Burning Man's like internal reckoning, and just to make sure that nobody abuses their status as a regional. And so they kind of want to see and compare. And if you're close to or ish, or it's an approximation there, yeah, this is not, an IRS taxes issue when they're going to come 5 years later, knock on your door and like, why did you underreport?
That is correct. The other things that I shared as requests from the regional event committee, that has probably a little more accuracy and importance behind them. So
okay, fair enough. And we don't have to stay vague about that. We can talk about those under new business shortly.
Great. Awesome.
So let's see. Okay, I think that's it then for event wraps. Reboot. It's not entirely your problem. Like, don't hesitate to reach out if you think that there's stuff that we can grab, like grant reports, etc. Frida, I sort of just volunteered you for that, but we'll absolutely engage to get this across the finish line in the next week or so.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Cool. All right. Great. Then contracts for Critical. So we have updated NDA copy from the attorney, and we now have, I think, all of the parameters that we need to be able to fill in the blanks on the previous contract. We need an owner for this on the board. Maybe that's me. And maybe I should go one step further and say I'll just volunteer to be the person that fills in the blanks there and ask the rest of the board for help if I run into anything that's an issue. And we'll get contracts in hands for all of the current production staff. Anybody, did I get anything wrong there? Okay. Reboot and company expect to hear from me shortly, like tomorrow, on that stuff. Okay. Bookkeeper selection. So we've gotten a couple of proposals back, and I think we've been swirling around wanting to pick a bookkeeper and get a bookkeeper up and running and onboarded and doing bookkeeper things for a while now. Marco, do you have a pitch off the top of your head or a summary of where we are with the quotes that you wrangled?
Sure. There was two of them. One of them was a straight sort of accounting. Yes, we'll do your books. And that was from the guy named Mark, who sort of manages a bunch of sort of itinerant accountants, or, you know, people who have accounting experience. And then he says, hey, here, this is the job. Who wants to take this on? You know, it's not quite DoorDash, but, you know,
He is Uber for accountants.
It's a pool of qualified people who do bookkeeping for him that he knows their work and can vouch for them, and et cetera. The other one was a little more interesting. That was Flemmy's friend, who said, hey, let me hook you up with my friend who does a lot more work with nonprofits, and have him, you know, sort of do the once over and say, hey, this here's some more opportunity to, you know, improve your processes, et cetera, and I might be able to find you some grants as well. And so one of them is just straight bookkeeping. The other one was, you know, maybe some pro bono consulting to help the organization.
Okay. The one other bit of context that I'm projecting here is I dug way back in the board archives and saw this. I don't know what bookkeeper this is a contract for. I don't know if we actually ever even executed this one, but I did spot this list of services, and this certainly felt to my eye like the list of things that we kind of need a bookkeeper to do, I think. And so I think that validating, I mean, obviously, first of all, anybody can propose a different way of thinking about this, but I think that monthly financials and the bank reconciliations and making sure that we've got invoices posted against the right accounting categories, and then handling receivables to the extent that we have any of those. I don't think we really actually do have receivables other than event ticket sales, which doesn't come with the collections problem that the word receivables kind of connotes in my mind. But like, this felt like a bingo to me. And so if we can find a bookkeeper that can kind of do all of these things, Marco, I think that both of the candidates that you talked to are probably certainly qualified to do this list, right?
Yes. I would add, you know, tracking of, you know, business license, tax deadlines, payments, et cetera.
Okay. Fair.
To like maybe item H or something, you know.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right, board. So I think we got, so Marco, you just summarized their sort of their profile, the mouthfeel, if you will. Horrible metaphor, but bear with me. But what was the difference in rate between the two? I remember one of them being maybe a split rate and one of them being a higher rate, but claimed he's more efficient.
Yes, the one split rate was like $95 an hour for just straight bookkeeping, $150 an hour for like a senior accountant, and then the other one was more. I think it was closer to the $200 range, but he claimed to be more efficient. And
Okay.
again, that one was linked up with the nonprofit consultants who might offer additional insight into policies and procedures.
Okay.
The second one, the bookkeeping with potential pro bono consulting and grant seeking. Do you remember that person's name?
Let me get into my treasurer email because I think that's where it's stuff. But that was Flemy's friend, Andrew Arthur. Oh,
His last name's Olney.
I'm having to log in again. Somehow Google logged me out. Let's see. So the first one was Mark Emerson. That is the bookkeeper, $85 an hour. Senior accountant is $100 an hour. And then Adam was the other person, Adam Olin. He'd be providing an estimate of working with you and would like to get a sense of the state of the company. Like to look at the last 3 years of 990s, your QuickBook file to get a sense of how things are structured. He would provide guidance on his findings for no cost and willing to get you a proper proposal for work moving forward. And
I'm sorry. The Mark Emerson one, you said it was 85 an hour for bookkeeping and how much for a senior accountant?
What was it, 100?
Okay. And Adam Olin wants to cost it out for us after doing the review.
Yes, 85 an hour for bookkeeping, $100 an hour for senior accountant.
Okay.
Awesome.
And for context, everybody, we budgeted 5,000 for this, so that's about 480 or so ballpark a month, which is like 5-ish hours of the $85 an hour junior accountant type. Strikes me that that's probably consistent. Like it's probably, yeah, in the neighborhood of what this organization is going to actually need for bookkeeping. Plus, I think we've got historical precedent here. Like we've had bookkeeping as a solved problem, right, for the vast majority of our prior existence.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well,
So I guess I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say my question is then, are we approving to move forward with Adam doing an analysis to give us a quote?
I think that seems fine if we can keep the speed up there. Like that's essentially where I was headed to, where my brain is at. Other thoughts on the board?
I think an assessment's appropriate. I don't
I
mind
think
opening
that's-
up.
Okay.
Okay, I will motion to approve the review and quoting from Adam.
I second.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? All right. It's unanimous. We'll press ahead. We need to figure out who we is, but we'll press ahead with an engagement with for an assessment.
Cool.
Who is we? Are we going to ask Marco to reach out on that? Everybody? I think that's probably right. Marco, do you have any objections?
No, I can start the conversation.
Okay,
and
right on.
somebody else can take it.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Grab me at the point where we need signed documents, etc. But yeah, if you'll make the initial contact, that would be great. All right.
Will do.
What is this canvas?
There's a whiteboard somehow. Somebody started a whiteboard.
Neat.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty, meat, I guess. That's distracting.
Yes.
There's a
Can we-
button says hide whiteboard.
Where?
The upper 3 dots on that screen.
There we go. It's hidden for me. All right, I am
Or
no
you
longer
just-
distracted.
Or you just click the multi-window thing and it goes away.
Beautiful.
Thank goodness
moving-
we're sharing this via YouTube.
All right.
Slap happy. Board member election update.
Yes, board member. Exactly. That's my line. So next, let's talk election update. Natasha, how are we doing? When are we going to end?
We are doing good. Let me pull up the relevant screen and let me share this actually. It's not a huge secret, I think. All right. So if everybody can see my screen, we have right now 88 votes.
Cool.
I'm not going to show how many people voted for who quite
Yeah,
yet.
let's definitely don't do that.
Not doing that. I'm not going to click back.
All right.
And so, but yeah, right now we have 88 people total that have voted. Elections will close Saturday, 9:30 p.m.
Okay. All right. Everybody
And
tell your friends to vote.
Yeah. As you all will know, we have a lot of open. We're going to have, in February, we are going to have 7 vacancies on the board. 4 of these vacancies are for a 3-year period. And then I believe that 1 vacancy is for a 1-year period and 1 vacancy is for a 2-year period. I need to go over my past emails and take a look at that.
Cool.
Following this election, we have 5 candidates. 4 candidates will be elected into a 3-year term. And the 5th candidate following the election will be voted into the longest opening that we have. We will still have 2 more openings after the election, unfortunately.
All right.
Yeah. The board, after getting the new people on board, we will then discuss what do we want to do with these 2 openings.
Yep.
Do we want to reach out to alumni and ask, hey, do you want to come and help us for a year or 2? Or reach out to the community and ask who wants to be appointed for a limited term.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's February or maybe even March probably.
Ethan.
Yes, Ethan.
So just because I was here before and here we are, we're having this thing, and because we decided, the public went through the bylaws and said we've had a couple of years of we're trying to cross all the I's and T's. In the same paragraph, I think it's worthy of note that says, how do we want to approach the quorum problem? And if anybody hasn't read them, am I reading that wrong? We're supposed to have 20% of our voting members, or
We'd have
says
7
when-
people for a quorum.
pardon? No,
We'd have-
the voting public, the voting members of the
If we wanted
candidates.
to change the number of total board seats, yes.
For board members, there is
No.
no quorum.
No,
Ethan,
Chicago?
Ethan's got it right. So in
Okay.
members voting, each member shall be entitled to 1 vote on all members submitted to vote by the members, blah, 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 blah. A quorum is present when more than 20% of eligible voting members have responded by electronic ballot within 5 days. Where a quorum of members is not achieved, the vote must nonetheless be taken under advisement on the record by the board. So the way I read that is taken under advisement on the record by the board is that we say in a future meeting, oh, look, we didn't get 20% of the members to vote, but this was still a decent turnout. So once again, everybody tell your friends to vote. This was a decent turnout. We believe that it reflects the will of the membership, and we're going to go ahead and do what we told everybody we would do, which was seat these electees by priority given to those with the most votes received. And I think that's my read. I don't want, I'm not an attorney, right? But my read is that would be an appropriate and defensible way for us to approach that situation.
I'm only saying it because I wanted to say it out in public. Since this is a recorded meeting, and that we're noting it and doing it per the letter here.
Yeah, it's a super good point. And yeah, it's a super good point. I think that there are lots of interesting questions around the growing roles, ROLLS, in this organization, and whether we want a whole bunch of members who came to Critical once in 2016 and are still on the membership rolls to be setting such a high bar for elections, for referenda, even for that matter, etc. And I think that's something we should talk about, but probably not tonight. Hands, Megaphone, you've got your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to say for the record, based on our membership in Neon, we would need like over 1,000 people to vote to reach that quorum. And I think, 88 people have voted in this election. So
yeah, we've never reached 1,000. I don't think.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But somebody brought this up in the last election, that the election wasn't valid because of that. So I think that as long as we're on the same page with that, I think that this was probably written during a time when not everybody had to be a member in order to attend Critical.
Yeah.
I also would say the sentiment that I've heard from folks in the community is that they feel like it doesn't really matter if they vote this time because there's fewer applicants than seats, which is why I think we have a low turnout.
Yeah, and I really tried to impress upon that it actually did matter. If you guys are okay with it, in the next post, I can say, hey, technically there's this thing, or we could just not mention that. I don't know.
Let's don't call attention to the bylaws. Anyone can read them. They're out there. And at this point, they're very well discussed in the community. I actually feel like it sounds a little bit defensive, even for us to be bringing up the bylaws specifically, especially because I think that we can't possibly be driving that as a successful outcome, right? Like to the point in the room, like no matter whether we say that or not, we're not going to have 1,000 people vote.
Right.
We should encourage people to vote. We should help people understand what the stakes are, right? Like, if you want someone to have less time on the board, make sure you don't vote for them and vote for the other 4.
Yeah.
That feels like that's actually helping people understand.
I tried to say that in a constructive way when it was asked, and I will go ahead and explain it again in a future post. I'm only saying it's because someone brought it up after the last election and said this election's not valid in some comments. So
fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough. Any other discussion on that? Alrighty. Onboarding new members. We probably really should pick a date for this, and also an approach if we want to get somebody set to finding us a location. This is another one of those things that we've been swirling around for a while. And I know that, well, I don't know. Like, it's without having the election concluded, it's hard to know officially whose calendars we should be asking for time on. But we can have our approach for this waiting and ready the second the election concludes. Anybody have thoughts on that? Is that agreement, disagreement? Frida, I think you wrote this down.
Yeah, and my hope and request was, even though there are quite a few board members exiting, that as many of us as we can should try to attend the onboarding so that there's lots of knowledge being passed down from lots of perspectives, rather than us just saying, the election's over, I'm done. Because we're not really done until the board is in new hands in good shape that are all informed and that everyone's, capable of doing their jobs. So I would hope that even though a lot of us are, ready to go, that we will stick around for this and cooperate on the dates. I know I plan to stay definitely in the grants committee for as long as possible. And I would like to stick on the board until I know everyone has come up to the place where they're full of knowledge.
That makes sense. I guess we can talk scheduling next month, but I appreciate the plea. And as one of the both new and continuing board members, I absolutely echo the plea and can say that we appreciate everyone's knowledge from those of you that have been on the board, and certainly will appreciate the rundown and the continuing support. Mariah, you've got your hand up.
I actually don't think we should wait until next month to find a date.
Okay.
I can tell you for myself and from past scheduling endeavors that the more lead time we have to find the date, the better it is. The easier it is to find a date because people get scheduled out really quickly. And I am going to be having some serious family medical things that I have to deal with coming up in about 6 weeks. So if it doesn't happen soon, I may likely not be able to be there. So I'm going to vote for sooner rather than later. It doesn't mean it need to be tonight, but I think, even tomorrow we could start a thread about it or something.
Fair enough. Ethan?
That said, we typically do we've had the onboarding and transfer over after next month's meeting, which is sometime in March. I know that myself, when I came on, it was end of March. That's when we did last year. And but if we're looking out, and that's 6 weeks, like you said, if we recognize next month's meeting, which for our board meeting next month is on Wednesday, the 21st. What about trying to find a place during Saturday on the 24th?
Like, I already know I can't make that weekend.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
This is going to be real hard as always.
Yeah.
I mean, we pulled another tick on the side of the sooner is better than later.
Yeah.
We pulled the election in this year from, I think, when it normally happens. I don't know if by 3 weeks or by 6, but I think it's a little earlier than usual. And I think I think we were being wise at the time. And I think that that's kind of compatible with let's get this scheduled. And
do we want to maybe do a doodle poll with a bunch of weekends?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm suggesting.
For
Okay.
February, March?
And March.
We
February
can do
March. The end of
I
February.
mean,
March.
the next weekend is March 2nd. So
yeah,
remember, it's February, the short month, right? So it's like it's a reality right now, and that just seems like, hey, let's go ahead and do. I say we just go ahead. Let's do a doodle poll, but I'm still thinking that I would like to see it. I mean, it has to be after the next month's board meeting. You don't want to do it before then.
Yeah,
right?
I'll do everything. All the weekends after that. If it means that I can't go to it, that's okay. That's just the way it is. But there's no. I have all this weird travel coming up. I also have family stuff happening. So
does it have to be after the next board meeting just to have that part of the conversation? I think that's traditionally when we announce election results, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yes. Well, we'll announce them right after the.
But we also already know the election results, right?
Yeah. Unless someone decides to bow out at the last second. Yeah.
Right. So no one is confused. And in fact, I don't feel bashful about publicly admitting that we already kind of know what the election results are. We could even include the possible electees on the doodle poll, just to get calendar.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually,
get
calendar
too.
clearance.
Yeah, I think so.
Really freaking done. Yeah. we can put whatever provisional language we want to on there to reflect that there's still a few days where insane things could happen, but I don't know how we can have an election outcome other than what the obvious one is.
I'm making a poll right now. I'll have it by tomorrow, I promise.
Right.
Wonderful.
On. Okay, great. Anybody have anything else on election or onboarding before we try to close our one last old item? We're doing great, actually, I think, getting some of these things off the list forever. Next one is Fremont Beer Gardens. Are we in? There was a lot of enthusiasm for it at the last meeting, but I don't know if we came away with an owner.
My thought on this is that, like I said, it's an easy thing, and it brings in a couple $1,000s. It's worth doing if, as long as we get the dates in critical that are in July and it doesn't get bumped earlier.
Got it.
So I almost feel like we have to wait until the Mason board meeting confirms the dates for us, so that we know it's not going to be like back to back or even overlapping for some reason.
Fair enough. Can we have a provisional approval and an owner, though, ready just in case critical gets the dates that it hopes that it will? I mean, I guess I'm not even clear who the possible owners are for this, right? Like, I know we had some champions. I know, I remember Marley being very excited about this.
Yeah. We should probably check in with Marley on it.
Okay. Board, do we want to tentatively approve this?
Yeah, I think we should do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I just heard Jeremy move that we should do the Fremont Beer Gardens on June 22nd and 23rd. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Sounded like I heard Ethan second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Say nay. All right. We've got provisional approval for doing the Fremont Beer Gardens. One thing I am a little bit worried about is I don't know whether we're losing dibs on this by letting this drag on. I don't know who we even need to get in touch with, or whether the 2 weeks. What are we talking about delay wise? 2 weeks? Maybe it won't matter. Maybe if it does, it's a sign we shouldn't have done
10
it in the
days.
first place. 10 days. Okay.
Yeah.
There's an email to the board from whoever it is. So if we do a search in our email box, you should find the email of them requesting it, and we can respond to that.
Okay.
I don't know who wants to do that.
Who wants to do that?
I can do that. I'll let them know that we're tentatively approving, and as long as our dates for critical get locked in, then yes, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And yeah, promise them that we'll get back to them real quick. Okay. Any other old business that didn't make the list? Moving on to new business. Okay, here's the other big item for this meeting, which we've been swirling around for a while. We really need to come out of this meeting with our approach for what is the event ban policy for this organization. And I don't mean we need the entire policy, but we absolutely need to understand what the structure is that we intend to use to stand in for the rack. And if we feel like we need to explore replacing the rack, what our structure is for doing that as well, or for exploring that as well. Does anybody want to open this? There's some knowledge that several of us accumulated at the Burn After meeting that I think we've talked a little bit about, and a subset of us can certainly brief or rebrief on that. Anybody want to open somewhere else this discussion? Okay, we'll start there. So Megaphone, I'll do like 60 or 90 seconds here, and then I'll let you fill in gaps. And obviously anybody else that has wisdom, questions, concerns, comments, etc. Community and the regional burn adjacent community is that it's nearly impossible for a board to successfully outsource this, whether to a commercial endeavor or even to a an affiliated organization like the RAC. It turns out that at the end of the day, the board, whoever the current elected individuals are that are at the helm of the nonprofit in question, are the decision makers that ultimately have to make decisions about this process, messy though it may be, demoralizing though it may be, enemy making though it may be. And the vast majority of boards, I would say this is near universal consensus, is that the vast majority of boards have a committee that the consensus name seems to be the conduct committee. There are a small handful of variations on that name, but that's a common one, really not only in the burn community, but also in other, like recreational nonprofits, organizations that have members that they need to do some policing on, self-policing on over time. So I would say that here I'm transitioning from what I think we learned to a very weak straw person proposal, but I think that a totally reasonable way, as a starting point, everybody feel free to pick this apart, way for our organization to approach this would be for us to charter a conduct committee, to staff it with at most 2 board members that notionally chair it, but that we also put some very strong constraints on that essentially say the conduct committee is a community process. Like the majority of the conduct committee participants are community. So in other words, they could be the retired RAC members as far as it goes. The conduct committee is where reports come in, and the conduct committee, in order to answer the what does the board do when a board member gets reported question, the conduct committee takes an incoming report, makes a quick determination if it involves the board, whether there's enough there for the board member to recuse, and then directly skipping their board liaisons makes the report to the board. With this person has been mentioned, we're vague on details currently, but we recommend having the board member recuse themselves from everything really until we kind of can get this a little bit more sorted. But we've looked at it, and there's enough there for us to sideline someone. And I think if all of us, like, I would be absolutely willing to say, period, that if my name came up, even no matter how perplexed I am by the fact that my name came up, if the conduct committee determines that there's enough there for me to sideline myself, I would absolutely do it. And I would hope that we could get all 11 board members to say exactly that, loudly, publicly, repeatedly, continuously, and to make that essentially our new policy. There are other organizations that have had luck with that approach. A lot of the East Coast regional burn communities have had luck with that approach. And like what happens if the board members don't do what they say they're going to do? I think the answer is that we as a community agree that the conduct committee has an opportunity, like that we encourage the conduct committee to go yell loudly about the board member that won't step aside when they promised they would, right? And that's like under almost all circumstances, I don't really want the conduct committee talking about people in public, but like that's the one place where I would kind of pre-green light, hey, conduct committee, you have permission to go yell about board members in public if they don't honor this tiny little agreement, right? So that's my opening salvo. I'll stop talking. Megaphone, what did I leave out? And then obviously others feel free to weigh in, shred that.
Yeah, I mean, like the main concern, right? So have like the main concern that another organization had in starting their conduct group, which was there was another, the Midwest Burners, I think, were starting something very along the lines of the RAC. And they were like, why did the RAC situation not work out? And we explained like some of the reasons why. And they were like, yeah, but we wanted to be separate because we wanted to also oversee the board. Well, I think that we just have to realize that the board is ultimately responsible for the safety of our events, right? Like that, this is what this is. Like the conduct committee is for conduct amongst our, we were talking about like radical accountability and everything is a really good goal, but ultimately what we really need is just to make sure that our events are as safe as we can by reports from the community members, and having a committee is the only legal way that we can actually do that at this, like, without subjecting people to legal ramifications and stuff like that. And also, like I said, we're the ones who are responsible for our events. Yeah, I mean, I think that having a committee that makes recommendations to us, and then we ultimately get to make the decisions as to if we do a flagging system or, you know, that kind of a thing. But it's just basically they will make decisions. If it's something, they will decide whether or not it's warranted to go to the board, and the board can basically make a decision as to whether or not that person gets added to a list. And then we own that list already, and there won't be like conflict. Like, it'll always be the committee is just recommending, and the board is who owns the list. And we're not beholden to the committee, but we are supposed to listen to the committee, and the committee is encouraged to hold us accountable for that.
Other thoughts?
Yeah.
No other thoughts? Community,
I mean,
you can pipe up. Yeah, Ethan, go
Yeah,
ahead.
if community people.
I mean, look, I would love to hear all sides of this, because this comes into that place to where at the town hall in the end of summer that we did last year, it was the last time that, you know, the rack was out in front of the public. I think it still stands. What does this community want? And right now, on the interim, we've got a whole lot of people that are in the middle, you know, that are still waiting on answers. We got, again, so I think it goes in the right direction, but I want to hear from Joe Public.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, maybe this is something that we have a little interim town hall type thing about. Beth Star.
Beth Star?
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I think all of that sounds interesting, right? And like probably the right direction. I think my concern is, you know, the way that our committees currently operate, anybody from the public can show up to any meeting, and you show up to enough meetings and you're now part of this committee. I am assuming that the conduct committee would be handled differently because we've got privacy concerns here.
Extremely, yes.
Okay. That was my only question. Thanks.
Yeah, we need to come up with some sort of system of like people who want to apply to become a part of the conduct committee, perhaps, and like their review against the current list of, you know, so that like, because we do have a ban list that we didn't just like throw out everything that we had when all of this went down. We do still have a list. It's just we also need to be able to have people give us reports of things that have happened since, and a bunch of open reports.
Ethan?
I think it needs to be said also that, yes, INW has maintained a ban list, and it was a different list that included all those names from the rack, but also people outside the rack that behaved poorly, whether it's, you know, for whatever reason. So we've had at the various events over the years, and there are people that will see the list. It's going to be, I mean, myself, for the whole rack list, I never saw any of the names on that until this last year when it was germane to what I had to do. It's not something that I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to go, oh, hey, that there's nothing interesting about that. But what I am saying is that I think public needs to know is that we all sign NDAs here. It's pretty great. I would assume that we're going to have those people that are on that committee or whatever we want to call that group, and it will go on with confidence and be actively maintained. I mean, I think that's what you were suggesting. I think that's what we've talked a little bit about, Feynman. And just to know that we're not putting it on a back burner so much as now starting to give it some of the attention it needs.
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi, hand up.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think that it's a good blended approach, right? Like when when I was on the board for Freezer Burn, we just maintained our own list. And actually, just coming back from working that event and seeing the ban list, it's interesting to see some things just stay the same after so many years. But I like also that it still has that sort of community accountability, right? That holds the board accountable, so that, you know, it kind of takes the best, you know, some of the better aspects of the RAC idea, I think, and while still putting the accountability for that list on the board. And I think that's a responsible approach to that. That's my feedback on it.
Thank you for the feedback. I think Frida had a hand up, and then Beth Star.
Some of the things that I think that need to be addressed that I'm not sure how is that the RAC has a backlog of reports that haven't been addressed yet, that they are more than likely not going to hand over to the new committee if they're not in favor of how this committee looks. And I mean, I think there are only 2 members of the RAC that are still wanting to remain involved. It is possible that they may want to be part of this committee and may want to share those. But if they don't, then I think it's really important that we communicate with the community that there is this backlog that's going to disappear into the nethers that we've never laid eyes on. And if they feel they have a report that has never been addressed, that they should, you know, resubmit it. I think that's very important, so they don't just think they're being ignored. And the other one is that we currently get emails from people who are on the ban list who want to be given another chance. And we all know how difficult restorative justice is for anyone who's ever tried it, including professionals. Figuring out some policy or system in place for people who feel they have been unfairly banned or who have been banned for things that they have made amendments on, like that piece of it, for me, seems to be the most difficult.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too, and I was thinking that the people who want to be reinstated could submit to the conduct committee as well, and the conduct committee could review that and make the same type of recommendation. Because I feel like that's the only way to go. Yeah, sorry.
Beth Star, your hand was up next. Then Ethan after that.
I actually, my comment test question, I guess, is sort of dovetailing very well with what Frida just said. Like, and again, Frida, I love that you are always really, really great at stating all of this complicated stuff really well. I feel like you go in my head and pull it out because all the stuff that I'm thinking about. The one other concern I have is just kind of add on to the pile that Frida is talking about is people that are in the middle. Like, there are humans that have, I mean, we had a situation at Critical where there was an alleged report, right? But because the RAC is doing what they need to do to stay confidential, like, where's that middle ground where we have humans that like are in this weird middle limbo? So like that's the third and fourth, fifth, I don't know, 10th complication of like, how does the conduct committee go from like there's maybe going to be a whole bunch of RAC reports that are going to be buried forever, and maybe that's the right choice. That's complicated, but also there are all these people in the middle ground that don't even know if they're banned, because we've sort of been doing this Band-Aid thing since the RAC and INW split. So it's a lot. I don't know that I guess I didn't have a question. I think that was just one of my on the list of concerns that I have.
It is a big mountain to climb.
Definitely.
But we
Ethan,
have to, I think.
Your hand is up, Ethan.
Yeah, it is. The last thing I think, I mean, honestly, I think this is a larger conversation than a portion of our board meeting. But with the assumption that going forward, not only, like I said earlier, knowing what the public wants, but that we have to understand that those names, I believe the RAC will always make good on, that they will never, ever reveal those names. And if the public has some concern about somebody or going forward, that we don't try to find names in the past. People that have concerns, bring it to the new association, however we want to do it. And again, we have that list of names and we go forward with that. But that is what that new committee will do.
Natasha, your hand is up.
Yeah. I think this is a town hall thing. I think we need to schedule a town hall for March or April that will, go for like 2 to 3 hours because it's a huge thing. And we come out of this town hall with the board voting on the formation of some sort of committee. As we talk about it, we might also need to amend our articles of incorporation in order to create a committee that isn't open to everybody and is by appointment only, et cetera, et cetera. We need to read and look like, are we allowed to create committees like that? And if not, we need to amend the articles. And as everybody said, we're not going to get anything from the RAC, except for what we already got, which is their flag recommendations, based on which we created our own list. And from this list, we will need to move forward. And also, I would like to see some sort of, I don't know, appeal, but maybe a duration. You're banned for 3 years, 2 years, not for life. Yeah.
I don't think you can just impose.
Unless you've done something like that egregious that requires a lifetime ban. But usually something that comes with a lifetime ban will also probably come with a police report and time in prison and stuff like that.
Okay, so all right, Wi-Fi. Quick one more comment, and then we'll try to move forward with concrete next steps.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of dovetail on what Natasha was saying about the kind of the different tiers of ban being options, right? Like a 1 year, a 3 year versus everything being a lifetime ban. I think there are certain things that can do that, but maybe that's a little too nitty gritty. I just wanted to add on to that.
Thanks for the comments. All right. I guess there is one more role that I want to make sure has a chance to voice concerns. Maybe I'll preview what I kind of want to move as our approach here, which is, I think the town hall point is really, really important. I think that the community has to be bought in on whatever our rekindled approach is here. I also think, and this is foreshadowing the other voice that I think we need to have represented here, that this backlog of which we speak is going to be extremely concrete extremely soon, as we have our biggest event of the year attempting to onboard this year's crop of leads. I think that someone, the RAC, the conduct committee, the board, in the absence of a RAC or a conduct committee, are going to have to be answering yes/no questions that I believe will be coming at us very fast in the form of lists from people with producer in their title. Producers, do I have that read correctly?
That you're going to have a list coming at you of people that we want vetted? Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So somehow we need capacity to answer that question, I would argue, before the inevitable town hall in, as Natasha said, March or April. And in order to do that, here is what I would propose. Obviously, we'll still debate and refine this resolution. I don't expect this one to go easily, but I would move that we create a conduct committee, that we figure out who our board sponsors are of that conduct committee, that we set about to, between now and the next board meeting, have whoever is on that conduct committee come up with some kind of draft approach to how we're going to, in the near term, start clearing this backlog, what our approach is in terms of recruiting community participation, and come up with what our approach is for communicating the process with the community that will include this first draft just to get the doors open again, with an acknowledgement that this cannot be a board only process, et cetera, and that these are the milestones, including the town hall, including maybe our bad first draft at what we think some of these policies look like. So I know that was super rambly, maybe not quite clean enough to be a resolution, but that would be what I would like to come out of here with tonight. Is there discussion on that?
So you're basically saying we should have a couple of people who are ready to. We also need to reach out to the RAC, right?
Yep. Yeah. And
basically reach out to the RAC and figure out an interim thing until we have created the actual committee.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think we need at least 2 board members. I am willing to put my hand up and say I will be one. I do not believe that I should stay on the conduct committee, but I am happy to help participate in the foundation of the conduct committee.
I am as well.
I understand that right now, with the people I see in front of me, as well as people coming on, we have a whole lot of things that we got committees that are required to have board chairs, and with not just like seats, and that's great, those are butts and seats, but here on the board, but we're talking about people leaving, and like myself with the events committee, there's a lot of work to be done, and brand new people coming in is awesome.
It's just going to be the way it has to be.
So what I'm saying is we're talking about this person, that 1 or 2 people that sit on that committee, as well as the events committee, at least 1 person. And, again, grants and all the,
grants and fundraising and acculturation and comms and tech and
which is why
I'm less worried about.
We're going to ask for a little hand holding probably from the exiting members.
Yeah, no, it's really true. Like committees is going to be one of the big staffing challenges, I think, for us. It's a very good point. So, all right. So that's my motion. And I think that the tasks for this committee, literally between now and the next board meeting, is reach out to the RAC, figure out where we are, attempt to extend an olive branch, and figure out what our hopefully collaborative, but also what the alternative is if collaborative approaches are not a thing, and a plan for the path, which includes a town hall and the interim policies. Like, this is a lot of work, but it really does have to happen real soon. Like, we really have to have a draft plan between now and the February board meeting. So Megaphone, I just heard you sign up for it. I'm signed up for it. We'll absolutely accept other participants as well if anybody's.
I can only do it limitedly, obviously, but yeah, sure. Yep, unless I need to recuse myself from my position, I have no idea.
Fair enough. I think I'm willing to say that this limited committee will be happy to report progress along the way to the board and incorporate feedback and seek wisdom, etc. All right, we good there? Do we? Maybe we need a proper resolution. I actually feel like this is a little bit more of a task. Like, the only thing about this that rises to the level of resolution in my mind is that we're sending agents of the board off to go attempt to restart the conversation with RAC. Maybe we want a resolution there. Otherwise, this is just tasks that will go get taken care of. Does anyone have strong thoughts on that? Like, I literally think that either approach is completely fine.
I don't know if it needs to be a resolution.
Okay.
I think that
it's just research.
We can work on a resolution separately, though.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question then about it.
Yes, sir.
I know that town halls are great because we get a certain amount of people that want to be included on a thing, and we have as reluctant as I am to say it, we have a social fucking network program, thing that everybody wants to check in on, whatnot. And honestly, conversations can happen on there, and if nothing else, just to dip a toe in the water and just say hey, and actually somebody here on the board, whether it just makes a post and say we would like some feedback. Now you're going to get a whole lot of feedback on there, I would guess, because it's thing. But really, is there any bad communication in that regard?
No, I love that approach, actually, an awful lot. Awful lot. It'll stir up some shit, but it's exactly the shit that we need to stir up in order to solve these real problems, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm super on board. Megaphone, I think, will take that task on this micro committee also.
Yep.
Okay.
We should meet.
I'll
touch base with you to set something up.
Yep. And we'll focus group the copy for that post with the full board also.
Yeah. That's not.
All right. Yep. And no promises on timeline for that. So the timeline that I'm committing to here is we'll have a bad first draft of what the roadmap looks like in time for the February meeting so that we can figure out how to get some actual board policy and tasks and town halls, etc., into the sausage factory for then. All right. Sounds good. So feels like a lot of soft progress, but if we deliver even half of what we promise we will by February, we'll be in real good shape for next steps in February. All right. Next on the agenda, we're kind of in running long territory, but we've only got 2 even medium-sized things left, and then I'll ask officers and committees to keep their reports brief. I asked the producers what they're going to need from the board for critical to go. And I'm not going to read the whole list here, but I would like to point out some of the highlights. They essentially said we need insurance covered. We need a policy for vetting leads in the absence of the RAC or bring the RAC back. We need bills and reimbursements paid timely. We need board members on duty at the event, and we need major policy changes to involve producers. And oh, by the way, can we do a COVID policy soon? So that's that's my bad paraphrase of the majority subset of the feedback that I got. Reboot, if you want a chance to change emphasis or wording on any of that, just to kind of get this in the board's brains, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I mostly just wanted to get that in the record and on everybody's mind.
Yeah, that's roughly what I said. Yep.
Okay. Good enough. So we as a board will be talking about all of these things. I can say this, as I've kind of been socializing this afternoon, no one has had any major allergic reactions. So, like we're going to have an all new board this year, not literally all new. Everyone knows what I mean by that. But nothing here was absolutely terrifying. On the other hand, hey, offgoing board members, this is the kinds of things that we're going to want to make sure that the set of us have a good plan for continuity on going forward. All right. And then, Marco, you've got the last meaty item on the agenda, which is, and you can talk in as much detail or as little detail as you would like about this, but you alluded to the regional coordinator group having some feedback for us as an organization.
Yes, due to the turmoil surrounding the prior president of Ignition Northwest, who also happens to be one of the co-RCs for the area, there was some sort of recommendations from the regional event committee. I realize that they may have not heard from anyone on the board regarding any of the issues that were raised by the past president. So take that into advisement. But basically, they would like a solid code of conduct from the board, leadership, and participants. And I think they're mostly, INW has something like that. I believe there's a participation agreement that y'all have to sign, et cetera, et cetera. Adoption of a clear conflict of interest clause, if it's not already in there, seems reasonable. Consider how to create welcoming spaces and how board and leadership selection can affect that. That seems a little squishy, and I'm not sure how you could, check that off the list. There was an encouragement about seeking mediation to explore how to address the issues and complaints flying back and forth. Urge everyone involved to think about how to work together in the future in service to the community. And then the last one was urge the new board members and RCs to think about how to work together in service to the community. So again, some of these are kind of squishy. Some of these are things that may already be existing, but I would like to be able to report back after the new board members are in place to say, yes, here's our code of conduct, here's our conflict of interest, and whatever else wants to be shared with regard to those other items.
Natasha, your hand is up.
So going again, reiterating the issue with our conflict of interest, we have a conflict of interest policy as is demanded by the IRS. This is a purely financial issue. I do not think we, like, what other conflict of interest can there be? It's very difficult to word something on paper talking about a conflict of interest. What, my personal interest is more important than the interest of the communities that I represent? Yeah, sure, but then it's impossible to actually prove or go along with that. I think that's kind of a given, that you need to try and put the community in front of your own personal interests. Maybe just add a line like that. I'm going to search. I think we have some sort of code of conduct.
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
It's extensive, in fact.
Yeah.
It's on the website, I'm sure. I feel like I've seen it on the Ignition Northwest.
And the rest is all, like you said, Marco, is very squishy. They're like, it's hey, we need to say something, but we don't actually want to say anything real, so let's say something.
And again, I think that they heard one side of the story and they didn't hear the other side.
Who runs that? Is that like the BMorg thing that is run by RASPA and
this is RASPA, yes.
Okay, I'll reach out to RASPA. I tried scheduling sometime before, or towards the end of 23 with RASPA. That didn't happen. I'm going to try and schedule sometime with RASPA.
What side of the store did they hear, if you mind me asking?
Tara's an RC.
I tried, and I got, okay, cool, never mind. Well.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with what Natasha's saying about the whole conflict of interest situation, is that our organization exists differently than most other organizations. When we talk about conflict of interest for a board of directors, it is because we are trying to avoid a married couple on a board of directors getting financial gain from the way that they vote. But there is nothing that prevents actually any board of directors from forming voting blocks. And the problem with our community is that it's your friends and your loved ones and a bunch of polyamorous people. I know that the community got kind of riled up by this, and that there was an error of impropriety or something like that, but there's nothing legally that prevents us from doing something like that. And there is no way to write something out that is we can't have partners volunteer together. That's just a way that, So, I think just making sure that we are all on the same page with that, and knowing that this is there is no conflict of that. We're not having conflicts of interest that is a personal gain to any of us on the board.
Yeah, I think we can very diplomatically make the subset of our case that needs to be made here. Marco, it sounded like, I just want to double check my understanding of what you were saying. It sounds like the timeline here is if they hear something from us that addresses all of these to the extent that we can, like sometime in the first quarter of 2024, we'll probably be on track to stay in good graces or good enough graces. Like, is that a responsible understanding, a responsible readback of the message that you were passing to us?
So that the additional text from RASPA is, on behalf of the Regional Event Committee, we please communicate these items to the new board members when they are selected.
Okay.
So I think if we can report back after the election, after everybody's signed the, code of conduct, et cetera, I think we can take it from there.
Okay.
And then y'all can figure out whether there's any mediation that needs to happen or is worth happening. But
perfect.
Again, I think it's unfortunate that they have not heard from the board on this issue.
Yeah.
I think it's important to kind of to take the angle of smoothing it over, and you know what I mean, like,
what is the right way for the board to approach that?
The smoothing of it over?
Hey, Raspa, I hear you've heard some shit about us. Like,
yeah. It feels
just like that.
I'm going to handle that. I have a personal relationship with Raspa already.
Okay.
I tried to talk to him at Bern. I was also directed towards the other, to Miss Morrison here locally. I saw her a month ago at the thing, and she apologized profusely that she was just too busy to get back to me for a couple of months. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll work several angles. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ethan.
Wait for Natasha to report back on what they get from that. Once the new board members are installed, we can report back on that.
Yep.
But back to the other thing about the afterburn reports for the events, that should happen before the end of the month.
Yeah, we want that to be a distant memory by the time we talk to them about other things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is there somewhere in our drive an agreement between, like, I'm going to use the contract between Burning Man and Ignition Northwest that allows Ignition Northwest to use trademarks, et cetera, et cetera? Is there something like that?
There should be an official events agreement that somebody had to sign at some point, because INW has been on a automatic renewal just because of our history and because we've been doing this for 20 years or so, and we are still on our automatic renewal, but they want to make sure that things don't jeopardize that.
Yeah, we need. I would love to take a look at that piece of paper if anybody can locate something like that.
I wish we'd known about this when we were in Denver, because Raspa was at the conference.
Oh yeah. Whatever. He's a busy guy.
Yeah,
right.
No, I know.
We'll make progress on this. Marco, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome.
Didn't even know that was going on.
Yes, as your other RC regional contact, it's kind of my duty to be the conduit between the org and the local community. And I did inform members that Tara had, lodged complaints. So.
Great. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
I wanted to also point out that if we have complaints that we would like to lodge against one of our RCs, that it is a two-way street and we can do that. And Marco replied to Holly's comments in that email thread on how that can be done. I, for one, am going to pursue some of that.
As is your right.
Mm-hmm.
And I am finding a regional use agreement for C compression for like 16, 17, 18, and 19. Like nothing really.
It's going to be very similar. I doubt it's changed much. I'll see if I can find anything on the regional network page. But I'm sure I can get a fresh copy if you need one before you talk to RASPA.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I saw one that was actually quite old, but because it was a standing paper, it was in the drive. But
Yeah,
if you don't find one, I'll take a look at some point tonight.
The latest I'm seeing is from 2019, and that's specific to C compression.
Which C compression is a trademark from INW.
Yeah, but this is a regional event use agreement.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
All right. We should do officer updates and committee updates, but do it lightning round style. Who has pressing updates for each of those in the interest of getting us out of here in the next 3 minutes?
The only I have one comms thing that I just want to say out loud. I posted a link, but if you have comms that need to go out, just make sure that you fill out the form. That is the best way to get it through to me. And I need like at least a 48-hour notice, 24 hours if emergent. Yeah, Marco?
And I'll remind everybody that the Seattle Announce List is available for any community-related announcements that need to go out. And if you want to just post it to it, I'll approve it, or I can give the megaphone, posting privileges. Holly already has posting privileges.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay if you have to approve it. I'll start utilizing it for all of my stuff.
Cool. Thank you.
Right on.
Thank you. But that's it for me.
All right. Yeah, there's nothing super pressing on tech committee. The one thing that's fairly well socialized at this point is that the tech committee, I built a prototype of, and the tech committee approved the sustainability and kind of maintenance plan. Like, we believe that it will last as long as the organization, which is we now have the ability to permalink things like board meetings using a URL like the one that I just pasted in chat. So for future meetings, you can go to link.ignitionnw.org/meet/board. And for right now, it will point at this Jitsi thingy. And once Jitsi is out of fashion next year, we still don't have to go back and update our calendars and Facebook entries, etc. again. We'll just update what this redirect link points to behind the scenes, and we'll be happy as a result. And this was unfortunately motivated by we need to change the link for this meeting. So, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us this week on this call. Make sure that for next month's meeting, you end up using a link that looks like this one, or the link in the updated calendar, appointment, Facebook link, etc. that you see between now and then. End of PSA. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn?
Know that we have a current application for a CComp producer, and hopefully next month we introduce that suggestion to the board.
Woot. Thank you. Events committee. Other committees with pressing news updates. Okay. Hearing no additional business, I guess let's adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.
Alrighty. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.